Hello everyone, and welcome to the May 2020 edition of our monthly movie reviews. This is the series where we take all the new movies we saw over the course of a month and review them in order from worst to best. As always, the links to the trailers of the movies we're reviewing will be in the description below, but also, in light of recent events, there will be a link below that is comprehensive to any way you can help, whether it's donating, signing petitions, etc. Before the video starts, I just want to say thank you for getting us to 200 subscribers. We got some more codes in this video, so watch out for that. Yeah, now it's time for the movies. Oh, you thought you were gonna escape the real world by watching these movie reviews? No, Black Lives Matter.
The Wrong Missy is kind of a funny movie. It's really cliche and super raunchy, and you have definitely seen it before, but you'll laugh if you see it. Kinda feels weird to be paying for David Spade's Vacation, but I will give it a 3 out of 10 because I laughed a lot during this movie and did not expect to laugh at all.
The Wrong Missy is the latest nothing movie from Adam Sandler's production company, Happy Madison. There was one visual gag that made me laugh, but honestly, I don't remember what it was, so I guess that says a lot about what this movie had to offer. David Spade does his David Spade thing, and I think society has progressed past the need for movies with David Spade as the lead. This movie has all of the hallmarks for what a bad comedy is in the current day. Trendy topics for jokes, obnoxious characters, some type of corporate job in the plot to relate to the crowd who happily flocks to these movies. Hot girl is interested in the mediocre guy for some reason, but the mediocre guy falls in love with a more homey looking girl that he hates in the beginning of the movie. It's so bad. I don't know how this movie needed 2 screenwriters to write something that's been done a million times. I don't know how this movie needed anybody to make it when it feels like it was made by robots. Like, robots didn't make this. Elon Musk didn't make robots to make this movie. Usually I don't like to pause the movie or go to the bathroom when I'm watching a movie. If I absolutely have to go, I'll pause the movie and I'll go, but I didn't respect a single artistic decision in this movie. So whenever I had to go to the bathroom or when I got hungry, I just left the movie running, and when I returned, it's like I didn't miss a thing. I even stopped watching the movie for about 6 or 7 hours so I can show my nephew Monster House and hang out with him. And by the way, he loves Monster House. Show Monster House to all your 4-year-old people in your life. They'll love it. And I'm giving The Wrong Missy a 2 out of 10.
Black Lives Matter.
Blue Story is currently the frontrunner for the most unintentionally hilarious movie of the year. I don't know how other critics praised this movie as much as they did, because this movie is basically a joke. Sure, the concept of the relationship between the 2 leads that happens throughout the movie could be compelling, but the way this movie was directed was tone-deaf and stupid. After every major plot point in the movie, a rapper will appear out of nowhere and start rapping, not just about what we just saw, but also about how we're supposed to feel about what just happened. Like, the guy says, "Man, that's so messed up," and "This is sad, it didn't have to be this way," and other stuff like that. Anyway, Blue Story, more like a 3 out of 10 story. Wham, got him. Black Lives Matter.
The Lovebirds is such a whatever of a film. I was low-key looking forward to this movie, and I'm not sure why, but it was such an annoying film. Every conversation between the 2 main characters is overplayed and super annoying. It feels like every line of dialogue was improvised for some reason. It gets so old so fast. The jokes are unfunny and annoying. One thing I did like was how it got right into the action, and we didn't have to wait long for the story to actually start. That was fine. Otherwise, it is super played out, and if you skip this movie, it will not matter at all. I'm giving The Lovebirds a 3 out of 10.
The Lovebirds is the second collaboration between Michael Showalter and Kumail Nanjiani. Their first, The Big Sick, was good, but I had my issues with it. The Lovebirds, however, lacks every single thing that made their previous film enjoyable. The dialogue is terrible. Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae have no chemistry at all. It's shot so plainly, and nothing about this film is interesting on any level whatsoever. I like Issa Rae as a personality a lot, and when I see her in films, she's very watchable, and I want to see, I'm interested in seeing her work, but I've yet to see her in a film where she's actually wowed me. I haven't seen her show Insecure yet because I don't watch TV shows that much, so maybe if I watch that, I'll be like, wow. But for now, I'm still waiting for an amazing performance from her in a feature film. This movie was originally going to come out in theaters, but it didn't for obvious reasons, but I think it ended up exactly where it needed to be, on Netflix, to be quickly disposed of and never thought about again. And I'm giving The Lovebirds a 3 out of 10.
Black Lives Matter. This is the Force Awakens of Scooby-Doo movies for real, as in it relies on nostalgia to bring in old audiences, but feels somewhat new and refreshing at the same time to draw in a newer audience. Whereas the live-action film felt like it was reinventing Scooby-Doo, this film feels like it is taking the best of the original series and refreshing it for a new audience. There are callbacks in Scoob to almost all of the Hanna-Barbera creations. It's crazy. We've got the Scooby Gang, of course, but we've also got Blue Falcon, Dynamite the Dog Wonder, Captain Caveman, Dick Dastardly, Dee Dee Skies, Muttley. This movie is low-key a Hanna-Barbera wet dream. It's nuts. Overall, the movie is pretty fun at times, and kind of cute during other times, but towards the end of the second act, it does start to feel like a lot is happening at once. It gets kind of overwhelming. The music and sound mixing throughout the beginning gives it that nostalgic feel, though. It is really the nice little touches that make this movie kind of a standout in the Scooby lore. It is kind of harmless at first with Blue Falcon dabbing and stuff like that, but once shit hits the fan, the movie is like a non-stop high for all the wrong reasons. Besides Scooby, the voice acting is kind of the worst. These new voice actors have nothing on people that have voiced these characters in the past.
Nigga flexing on you is my duty. I'm the big dog, my nickname is Scooby.
The movie is super fast-paced too, and you know exactly where it's going to go. It just feels safe. Also, having Shaggy and Scooby being shown as the weak link to the gang again on the big screen is just so played out by now. Something different can be done with these characters. By the end of the movie, it just becomes a chaotic mess, and you can't wait for it all to be over. It honestly just gets crazier and crazier, but it is a nice return to Scooby-Doo overall, and I would recommend if you want to just explore the characters again. I'm giving Scoob a 5 out of 10. Also, Simon Cowell is in this movie for some reason. Whatever.
Scoob was bad. When I was a kid, I used to love Scooby-Doo. I saw all the TV shows, I saw the straight to VHS movies, I saw the first live action movie constantly, I saw the crossovers. I was a Scooby-Doo stan. Walking into this movie, I was a little trepidatious, and it turns out that my suspicions were right, because there is not a lot to enjoy about this movie, because they stripped away most of the enjoyable aspects of Scooby-Doo. The voice actors were replaced by celebrities, and it ruins the experience for most of the movie. Their voices just sound off. I think Will Forte voices Shaggy, and it just sounds like an impression. It doesn't sound like Shaggy, and that basically goes for a lot of the other voices. And on the visual end of things, the new designs of the characters are kind of gross, and I don't really care for the 3D animated thing when it comes to Scooby-Doo. It just doesn't feel right. Even though those things bother me, I could excuse those things if the rest of the movie was good, but it isn't. There's not even a real mystery in this movie. Yeah, mystery. You know, the first word on their car. You know, the one thing you associate with Scooby-Doo stories. We get a glimpse of that in the prologue when they're kids, but after that, this movie basically turns into a superhero movie. Simon Cowell is such a large part of the character's development and the plot for no reason. Maybe if he was a part of the live action movies when American Idol was at its peak popularity, I would understand, but it's 2020. Who cares? Who cares? That's the question I ask myself after most of the scenes in this movie. Who cares? Not me. There's so much that could have been done with a Scooby-Doo movie in 2020, and I feel like its potential hasn't been reached yet. We could have gotten a beautifully animated 2D film that could have shaken up the industry like Into the Spider-Verse did. We could have gotten a film that has a nice commentary on business or authority or just the truth in general, seeing as though they're private investigators. They're millennials at this point, so there's a lot that could be done there. Or you could have done a period piece, you know, and keep it in the original time period when Scooby-Doo was created. We could have had like a real mystery story. We could have had a real mystery, like literally anything. But instead, we got a movie that is trendy on every single level, and I don't ever want to see this movie again. And I'm giving Scoob a 3 out of 10. Hey, did you know that Black Lives Matter? Radioactive stars Rosamund Pike from Gone Girl, and she's way too good for this movie. I don't really understand what this movie was trying to achieve. If it was going for a movie about Mary Curie, I don't know if it succeeded because it spends a lot of its runtime centered around the men in her life. And if it was going for a movie about the consequences of radium, I don't know if it really achieved that either because it just comes up as like a plot device or just, you know, like conflict. I didn't find it too compelling. It's kind of boring at times. It's not a terrible movie, but it's not an okay movie either. I have no desire to see this ever again, and I don't think anyone who sees it will ever have a desire to talk about it, share it, or want to see it again. And I'm giving Radioactive a 4 out of 10.
Black Lives Matter.
The Wretched is a formulaic horror movie with no new ideas. It's basically Disturbia or Rear Window meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and on paper that would be cool, but this movie again is so formulaic, so paint by numbers, and the characters are so stupid that it's a pretty frustrating watch by the time the movie is over. Like, you're just frustrated and you're like, why'd I sit through that? Why'd I sit through watching the main character try to go in the dungeon of the neighbor's house during the daytime? Like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you wait for them to maybe leave the house, or like literally anything? Why would you do it in the middle of the day, like where you can be seen? It doesn't make any sense, where everyone's awake. Hello. And the characters aren't the only thing that's silly. The lighting, especially at night, can be pretty ridiculous. Its silliness is displayed in all of its silly glory in a scene where the dad finds the shrine. He's like investigating with a lantern, even though most of the room is already lit by the moonlight blasting out of the windows onto his face, onto the walls. So his lantern is basically useless. It's just there to be like a trope. It's whatever. It's stupid. But at least I wasn't bored, and I'm giving The Wretched a 4 out of 10. Do blue lives matter? No, because blue lives aren't real.
Justice League Dark Apokolips War is the best DC animated film that has been made, but it is still annoying. Like all the other films, the animation is so god-awful. It is so embarrassing that I am pro DC, because the animated films they have released are so below average in quality. I don't know why people enjoy this and praise it. This movie is also super violent. Like, this film is not for kids. Please do not show kids this movie. My jaw was actually dropped when I saw events take place. It is insane. Anyway, the story feels like nothing at the end because of reasons. None of it matters anymore, but whatever. I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 10. Black Lives Matter.
Arkansas is the directorial debut of Clark Duke, who you may remember as the comedic relief guy in Sex Drive. I think what this movie does right for the most part is casting, especially in the casting of Vince Vaughn, who gives the best performance he's given since Brawl in Cell Block 99, and the casting of Liam Hemsworth as the strong silent type. The Liam Hemsworth casting works in this movie because he's basically a charisma vacuum in every other movie I've seen him in, so the less emotion he shows and the less personality he has to show, the better, to be honest. He reminded me of, like, I wouldn't say Clint Eastwood, but a Clint Eastwood adjacent guy who was in control of every scene, or who thought he had control of every scene and felt very confident, and I felt like his performance in the movie was confident until the end, where he has this crying scene and it's not good. Like, I can't tell if he's trying to convey that the character is bad at showing real emotion, or he's just bad at showing real emotion. Like, there wasn't anything really in the writing that continually reinforced that idea. It just didn't work. Arkansas, all in all, is fine, I guess. If you're looking to spend 2 hours, I guess you could do worse. But my biggest beef with this movie is that it shamelessly wears its Quentin Tarantino love on its sleeve. The usage of chapters for its structure, the camera whip pans that are used sparingly, the morally gray characters, the attempt at witty dialogue, the storytelling, etc., etc. It just made me want to watch a Quentin Tarantino movie instead, and I'm giving Arkansas a 5 out of 10. Black Lives Matter. Becoming is a documentary companion piece to Michelle Obama's latest book, Becoming, and what a wasted opportunity. Granted, there is some good stuff in here, but so much of what this film is trying to be is hindered by two things. One, its runtime, which doesn't give the opportunity for this film to do anything substantive, and with the subject matter being about so many big things, it feels anemic and unexplored. The second reason being the current political landscape hinders this movie from being real, or allowing Michelle or Barack to look human or flawed. It feels like they still have this responsibility to look picture perfect, since the DNC keeps fucking up the opportunities they have to have acclaimed leadership in their party. The constant attacks from Agent Orange don't help, and also them being powerful black people in the public eye in America doesn't really allow them the opportunity to create a film about themselves, or others to make a film about them that feels feels like a real exploration or an essential viewing or literally anything substantive. It was a nice way to spend 90 minutes, but I didn't feel like I really got anything out of it. Maybe the book is different. I don't know. Probably. I mean, I'd assume that a book would have more details in it that you could read. It's in my house. I'll read it at some point. Anyway, I'm giving Becoming a 5 out of 10.
Black Lives Matter.
Capone is the millionth film about Al Capone, and honestly, it's not as bad as everyone says, but also, it's not great either. Capone is supposed to be the comeback movie for director Josh Trank after his previous film, Fantastic, pretty much obliterated his career into another dimension, and in a way, he redeems himself. I appreciate what this film is trying to do, which is demystifying mobsters and taking mobsters off the pedestal that they don't deserve to have, making them stupid, or dementia-ridden murderers who shit themselves in their adult diapers. Tom Hardy gives a very Tom Hardy performance, if that makes any sense. If you've seen enough of his films, you know exactly what I mean. He's a great actor, and he's good in this movie, but I wish he would pick more things that show off his range, because there were a couple of moments where I was like, oh, this is like what he did in Legend, and this is like what he did in The Dark Knight Rises, and it was just kind of distracting. On the other hand, the makeup work was amazing. The makeup work on Tom Hardy's face was so excellent that when I was watching the flashback scene, he looked like a completely different person, and I was like, oh wait, his skin isn't that wrinkled. But maybe in that scene they probably de-aged him a little bit. Either way, the makeup on both sides, I mean, incredible. Overall, this movie does a couple of good things, but it doesn't do nearly as much as it thinks it's doing. For every little thing that's enjoyable, like the makeup, you'll get something on the opposite spectrum, like the casting of Neil Brennan as Al Capone's lawyer. Like, this stand-up comedian who co-created the Chappelle Show is in this serious movie about mobsters who have adult diapers. Like, what? What is he doing here? It's so distracting. And I'm giving Capone a 5 out of 10. Excuse me, hello, yeah, Black Lives Matter. All Day and a Night is directed by Joe Robert Cole, the co-writer of Black Panther, and this movie is alright. This film jumps back and forth in time from before the main character commits murder to him in prison where he's stuck in the same cell block as his dad. Your interest in the film hinges on whether you think the why this film is dangling over your head is compelling enough, and I think it is. This film feels similar to Moonlight in a way, which is probably why he cast Ashton Sanders, who played Teenage Chiron in Moonlight, but it's not nearly as complex or well presented as Moonlight in my opinion. Jeffrey Wright plays the abusive father in the movie, and his prison scenes are fine, but the scenes when he's younger, where he has to act aggressive and toxic, are not convincing at all. Maybe he's acted like this in real life before, but it felt like he's treading over unfamiliar territory. It didn't feel authentic to me, and when I was watching him doing these scenes, it kind of felt like he felt uncomfortable doing it. There's some weird editing choices that I cannot explain. Like, there will be cuts to bad angles during important moments, and you wonder to yourself, why did they do that? I want to see the actor's reaction to this new information. Can I see it? Why are we cutting to a reflection on the ceiling? The fight scenes in this movie are dizzying, which is weird because overall, it's shot pretty well. There's a long oneer at this party scene where it starts either inside or just outside of a building, and then it goes outside to this block party on an intersection in the middle of the street, and there's a Mustang doing donut holes, and the camera's in the center of the donut hole, and it's pretty awesome. But I really wish the rest of this film was as ambitious as that one shot, and I'm giving All Day and a Night a 5 out of 10.
Black Lives Matter.
The Assistant is a slice-of-life movie about an assistant of a production company starring Julia Gardner from Ozark as the titular assistant. This film does a couple of things well. I like that you never meet the boss, that he's always a force dictating the monotonous goings-on in the office, but you never meet him. The scene with what I'm going to assume is the head of the HR department is so good, it's worth the price of admission alone. Like, if there is a reason to watch this movie, it's for for that scene. Julia Gardner gives a very restrained performance, but she carries this very thin story very well. I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to like it because of its slow pace and how nothing really happens, because again, it's a slice of life movie, and most people have office jobs and they don't want to be reminded of the hell they've escaped for the last 3 months. But I think this movie is pretty good. I wish the ending was better, something more definitive and clear, because most of the movie is vague, but its intentions are pretty clear, so its vagueness and ambiguity isn't really all that ambiguous. I don't know if that makes any sense. Anyway, if you're looking for a quiet drama that makes you think a little bit, then The Assistant is that movie, and I'm giving The Assistant a 6 out of 10. Black Lives Matter. Have a Good Trip is a documentary about psychedelics where a bunch of celebrities talk about their experiences with psychedelics. If you're looking for an informative movie about psychedelics and their effects and scientific blah blah blah, this is not that movie. If you're looking for a movie that answers the question, should I take psychedelics, then this is that movie. I say that because it provides so many different testimonials on such a wide spectrum of experiences that anyone is bound to relate or be entertained by most of them. And if you see yourself in one of these people, then that will definitely answer the should I take psychedelics question for you. They also provide some nice basic do's and don'ts for first-time users, and there's some fun after-school special parodies throughout that basically make fun of the DARE movement because it was a joke, and you know, all that propaganda we grew up with. As a person that's never done LSD in their virgin squeaky clean life, I can say that I got a lot out of this movie, and I'm giving Have a Good Trip a 6 out of 10.
All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter.
The High Note is a music drama comedy about the assistant of a middle-aged pop star doing music stuff, and she's secretly a producer, but her talents haven't been noticed yet, and it's alright. Tracy Ellis Ross gives a pretty layered performance, and she's my favorite aspect of this movie. She grabs your attention and never lets it go until the movie cuts to the next scene and she's not there, and you miss her desperately. Dakota Johnson carries this film pretty well, although she's not as great as she is in Suspiria. Everyone see Suspiria, please. It's an amazing horror movie, except for like the part where the screen goes red. That was dumb. Kelvin Harrison Jr. was a delight as always. Don't forget to watch Waves if you haven't already. What the hell are you doing? I spent 5 whole minutes talking about it in the November videos. Just see it already. But I digress. My biggest beef with The High Note is that it's a music film, but the music in the film is so generic and doesn't reach the heights that the characters describe to each other of what they want out of music or what the good music that they're talking about is. In good movies about music, the original music in the movie is usually good, and the pop song that's supposed to be framed as bad is usually one of the best songs in the entire soundtrack, but I would never listen to any of the songs in The High Note ever again. The High Note is a pretty cookie cutter story, but I was entertained and invested throughout, and I'm giving The High Note a 6 out of 10. Black Lives Matter. Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind is an HBO documentary about the life and death of Natalie Wood. It's a pretty interesting movie if you're not familiar with her besides West Side Story and Rebel Without a Cause, or if you weren't alive when she died. Most of the narrative is being directed by the daughters because they're the ones speaking. I mean, it's not directed by them literally, but they're the ones speaking mostly about Natalie Wood, so it feels like they're pulling a Jackie Kennedy and trying to refocus the narrative of Natalie Wood now that they're old enough to do so. This film is further legitimized by the involvement of Natalie Wood's friends and her co-stars, most notably Robert Redford, but there was a part that rubbed me the wrong way, where they used the platform of the movie to exonerate Natalie Wood's husband Robert Wagner from her death. Recently, the case has been reopened, and Robert Wagner is still a suspect since he was one of the last people to see Natalie Wood alive. They basically sit down Robert Wagner with the main daughter who's telling most of the stories, and they talk about the investigation, and they try to put zero doubt in your mind that he had nothing to do with her death. And I understand that the daughters don't want to like attack their dad or their stepdad for what happened to their mom. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but also I think it's kind of tacky to use the platform of this film to try to skew public opinion in your corner when it's not really our job as the public to assign innocence or guilt. But anyway, say, I think the rest of this documentary is heartwarming and informative and entertaining, and you should definitely try to learn about one of early Hollywood's many female trailblazers, and I'm giving Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind, a 7 out of 10, even though she basically wore a Puerto Rican face in West Side Story. Fuck West Side Story. All my homies hate West Side Story.
Blue lives do not exist. The half of it was so good. Oh my god. Okay, go watch it right now, then return to this review. Oh my god. This movie is shot extremely well. It also has a super interesting concept. I am not sure if it has been done before exactly like this, but it feels fresh and well executed. It is such a cute little film about love that I feel everyone could relate to. The main guy character in this film is super dumb, but honestly so relatable. Everything in this movie just feels relatable. It feels like real life. The movie presents questions about love and wanting for 17-year-olds, and I've been 17 and have been around 17-year-olds for literally like 3 years now. This is not what they think about at all. You know exactly what they are thinking about. It's not actual love. Anyway, this movie was really good and I recommend it for real. I'm giving this movie a 7 out of 10. Really nice and super relatable. I love it.
The half of it is the best movie I saw this month, and oh my god, this movie is so adorable. This is the first Netflix original film without a big named actor or director attached that is actually good. It's crazy it took 5 years for this to actually happen. I don't think I've ever rooted for a movie to succeed while watching it like I have with this movie. It's shot mostly conventionally, and there are spurts where it wows you, but it's in small ways. It never jumps out to be like, hey, look at me.
Leah Lewis
Gives one of the most engaging performances of the year. The dialogue isn't complete ass, which is saying a lot for a teen coming of age movie. The formula is definitely present, but I think it does a lot more with it than most movies have done recently. I'd say it's the best high school movie since Booksmart, but this movie does have its shortcomings. I thought there were moments that were telegraphed and kind of cheesy, but that's the least of my gripes with this movie. The sound design for crowds and other background things can often be terrible. Like, you'll hear the same stock crowd sounds you've heard for the last 20 or 30 years, which is pretty disappointing because an aesthetic regression like that is completely contrasting in a bad way with the progressive elements of its plot. And finally, the social media presentation was bad. It just is. Just be like 8th grade and show it on the phone, and that's it. Use the real apps. Use Instagram for real. Use WhatsApp for real. Use iMessage for real. It'll never be outdated in a bad way. After years and decades go by, the only thing you'll think about is, oh yeah, remember when the user interface used to look like that? Or remember Instagram? You know, like, it should feel like how we look at movies now where home phones or fax machines or pagers are used on a regular basis. Anyway, besides all that, I really enjoyed this movie and I think everyone should check it out. I know I just complained for most of this review, but the half of it is seriously a worthwhile movie. Even if you don't like it more than I do, or, you know, whatever, there's no way you can say that this movie is bad. If you think this movie is bad, I think you have no soul. And I'm giving the half of it a 7 out of 10. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you agree or disagree, tell us in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share with your friends. Do all the things. The Matrix video is coming soon, I swear. The video editing is almost done, and then I have to do the sound design and music and all that. So yeah, it's coming. We have a new commentary coming out soon. We have a video coming out in July about a certain director. That should be a fun video. And yeah, don't forget to check out the link in the description. Okay, bye bye.